Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Chris, and good afternoon to all of you. Welcome. It's so great to be able to welcome you here in person and to see all of you sort of joining in community together. I'd like to just start by sharing some gratitude also for our team, for all of the attention and dedication to planning this orientation and welcome week, and of course to getting our fall semester underway safely. Thank you so much to Dean Chamberlain and his student affairs team. Thank you to Natalie Brooks, our chief talent officer, who also oversees our facilities team. Our facilities staff, in conjunction with our health and safety committee, have just done incredible work to establish the safety protocols that are going to get us through this week and through the rest of the year. And thank you to our deans and our associate deans, our faculty and staff for all of the preparations for the upcoming semester. I'm really excited about what's ahead. We have been so eagerly awaiting your arrival. This school year is an important next chapter for all of us, for our institution, as we mark the start of a new academic year and make a long-awaited return to in-person learning. For our newest class of bright, talented students who have persevered and pivoted in ways few other classes have had to before them. For our second-year students, many of whom are coming to campus for the first time. We know this is new for all of you as well. And also for you, for families and parents who have challenged, supported, and encouraged them to explore their talents and their dreams. So let me just start by congratulating all of you. Getting to this point is, I think you know, no easy task, even under the best of circumstances. Through the growing pains of high school and the uncertainties of becoming an adult in what is now a very different world. The student in your life is embarking on an exciting path forward, a path that you helped set for them with your love and support. They put in the hard work, but you put in hard work too, and now we all get to witness the incredible places they are going to go. The fact that your student made it here to Cooper means that they are exceptional. Academically, yes, but also in their determination to pursue what matters to them. They are a kind of student who is eager to solve critical problems and to probe important questions. And they're here because Cooper Union seeks out individuals who are driven by a deep sense of purpose. Over the next few years, they will develop their craft. They will push their thinking to new realms. They will stretch themselves academically, intellectually, and creatively. And they will find inspiration to apply what they learn in meaningful ways. Over time, I've seen how individual interests and individual purpose evolve for students during their study here. Personal interests beget explorations of what matters for the greater Cooper community, what can address the issues facing New York City, or what makes a difference for people in need, whether right here or halfway around the world. And the result of that evolution becomes really an outsized impact that Cooper has on the world by students whose interests are really as varied as they come. There are really no molds to fit at Cooper. And students who soon enough become graduates who span industries and professions of a well-connected network of accomplished Cooper alumni who already are eagerly awaiting the moment when they can embrace them as part of the alumni community. And all of that is really just as Peter Cooper, our founder, intended when he opened this very building, the foundation building that we're sitting in 1859. He intended for this institution to play a significant role in the civic and cultural life of New York City and of the nation, and for all those who studied here to really better their own position in life and to contribute to their communities and to the world at large. That vision is realized in the achievements of our students and our alumni. Your student is now a part of that community that is characterized by certainly academic rigor, but also by intellectual curiosity, by creativity, and by unique personal expression, whether in their labs, in their art and architecture studios, or in this East Village neighborhood in one of the world's most important and influential cities that has now become their home. But just as important is that they are part of an active and engaged citizenry, one that grounds our collective work in this place, a place where some of history's boldest voices have shared and debated ideas, new ideas, where great American movements have taken shape. So consider for just a moment that Abraham Lincoln addressed his counterparts from this very room to argue against the expansion of slavery. Susan B. Anthony had an office on the second floor of this building, and she and Elizabeth Cady Stanton would come downstairs into this room and organize and advocate for a woman's right to vote. Abolitionist Frederick Douglass advocated here too. So did Red Cloud of the Lakota Sioux and Little Raven, chief of the Arapaho, who spoke of the rights of Native Americans. Some of the earliest workers' rights campaigns took place in the Great Hall, just as the NAACP and ACT UP, which were campaigns that were organized here at Cooper many years later. In recent years, we have hosted experts and authors, scientists and artists and historians, performers, politicians, people who have weighed in on the important issues of our day, on issues from climate change to the immigration crisis, to mass incarceration, to the validity of the Electoral College, and the call for equitable equitable cultural representation in every aspect of our lives. If there's an issue that is important to your student, there is a place here for them to weigh in and to use their voice, to debate one another, to lead, and to contribute as so many of their predecessors have before them. Your student begins their endeavors here surrounded by a very special academic community comprised of peers and mentors who will be there for them. And you'll meet many of the academic leaders who will help to shape their journey here as well. The work will be intense, for sure, but the students are all in it together. They will become each other's best supporters and the best constructive critics of one another. Cooper students are really full participants in their own education and in the education of their peers, and it's one of the things that makes Cooper such an important and special place to get an education. This year's incoming class represents some 21 states and 18 different nations, bringing the kind of diversity of thought and perspective that really enables our small community to thrive. As Cooper families, you are now part of that too, and as I hope you'll see, this is a place where we take care of and look out for one another. The compassion and the mutual support within our community has been especially important over the last year and a half, as all of us have had to quickly rethink our academic and our personal lives to really adapt in unprecedented ways and to come together even while we've been apart. From the start of the pandemic, our deans, faculty, and staff worked to move Cooper forward while sustaining our academic excellence, really applying lessons learned and restructuring protocols to enable safe means of teaching and collaborating. And that has been, a dynamic process. As all of you know and have been experiencing and living every day, the environment has continually shifted, and we've worked really hard to shift with it and to stay ahead of those shifts. This semester is really the culmination of many months of careful planning, and we are looking ahead with cautious optimism. As we've all seen, the pandemic is not over. The variants continue to impact people, particularly those who are unvaccinated in cities and states across the country. We have accordingly implemented new cleaning, testing, and maintenance protocols to meet all of the public health and safety guidelines. Misters, upgraded air filters, monthly air and water quality testing. Our facilities team is really prepared to respond quickly to any changing requirements and guidance from public health officials. From a virus mitigation standpoint, as you know, we are requiring vaccination for all students, faculty, and staff to be on campus. moving into the semester will really require vigilance on all of our parts, and just as importantly, a commitment to really upholding our collective social contract with one another and to do what we can to reduce transmission of the virus. I am a mom myself, and I understand that this is an exciting and also potentially anxious time for you too. Not only because of how the world has changed in the last year and a half and the uncertainties that face all of us, but because your students are beginning one of the greatest adventures of their lives, and they're doing it at a top institution in a city that is full of opportunity. And yet you may feel the tug of separation, the tension of hope and worry about how they will fare in these newly independent lives as newly independent young adults and students in demanding fields of study. I can't take away all of those concerns, but I hope it can help you to remember the role that you played in contributing to the confidence, the insatiable curiosity, and the drive that brought your students here to begin with. You were, and you always will be, their first teachers. I know you're proud of them today. I also know that pride will only grow as your students develop into who they came here to be. In that sense, I wish you an incredible Cooper adventure too, and I can't wait for you to witness all there is to come for them. I look forward to meeting many more of you today and in the coming years. Congratulations again, and welcome to the Cooper family.
Thank you, Laura. So now we're going to turn things over to our academic leadership, who will give you a brief overview of the 3 degree-granting academic programs, and then we'll also hear from our Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences to give you a sense of what that curriculum looks like and what those experiences will be for students around humanities as they engage with art, architecture, and engineering, and how those things all intersect. I will start off by asking Nader Tarani, who's the Dean of the Irwin S. Channon School of Architecture, to step up and give some welcome remarks. Nader.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris. Welcome to the Cooper Union. It's really an honor and a pleasure to be able to host you here today. I want to wish a warm applause to the class of 2025 and 2026. They are the individuals we should be celebrating today. And of course, you, their parents. It has been a tough year. We have all probably been in the same place, in our pajamas, on screen, in some way or another, trying to grapple with everyday life, overlaid with our families as well as our businesses and our pedagogies in tow. I think what this year represents for architecture is a coming together of bodies in a space that is sacred for us, and that is the studio. That studio space that I hope you've all seen on the 3rd floor is not merely a place where we as faculty come to teach students. It is actually a place of interaction for them, a place where they debate, a place where they teach each other. So much of what we do is scripted, is formal, is thought through and proactive, but the reality is that there's no substitute for the happenstance, the serendipity, and that thing that brings us together. This is about physicality, it's about tactility, and it's about another form of emotional knowledge that, frankly, many of us were robbed of last year. But all was not lost last year. In being relegated to that flat screen, we discovered a representational space that is at the core of what architecture is all about. What do we do at the end of the day? We imagine worlds that are yet to be built in orthographic projections. And though arcane they may be to many of you and many of us, they come together in a synthesis that in many ways speaks to the world. To that extent, how and what we do in our first year is incredibly important, because at one level we are so committed to the project of pedagogy itself, one-to-one relationships with students in desk grits, collective conversations in reviews and juries and critiques, but also a way of reintroducing them to the world. We collaborate. We collaborate with each other, but we collaborate with the world. We work with Help USA on housing. We work with the Museum of Modern Art on exhibits that they're undertaking. We have just completed, in collaboration with students, an extraordinary exhibit at the Venice Biennale. And this year, we will also be part of the Beijing Biennale. We think of architecture as an important thing to our little department, our little school. We are the smallest. We walk into that studio of 150 people and we know each other, we recognize each other. We forget that 95% of the planet that you and I live on has been impacted by the human footprint. And so when we talk about our global footprint, the climate crisis, and the things that impact the globe, we have to reckon with what architecture, planning, urbanism, and the making of that built environment has to do with it. One of the key values that I believe Cooper Union brings to this education in architecture and is distinct to this culture, I have not seen it in any other school, is the role of making itself. They do not imagine how to build, they actually build. One of their first courses is workshop, where they have hands-on experience with casting, with metalwork, with woodwork, and now with the inauguration of the ACE Lab, the digital lab that was launched last year, just about a week before COVID hit us, they get to use it in person for the first time. Lucky for us last year, precisely because it was digital, it gave us access to these premises in a way that saved the year, in a way that we could not have imagined. So I'm incredibly optimistic, not because I'm so optimistic about the world. The world is burning around us, frankly. However, we have learned a lot last year. We have learned that there are things that we can do online that we could never have imagined doing in person. But so too, we learned that there are moments that are punctuated where we come together and interact in person. So whatever this year ends up being, I am extremely optimistic at the kind of cadence that we can produce to bring them together in this space, to bring them in studio, to make together, and to celebrate being back together. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Nader. Like Dean Essel, Mike, if you would come up. Mike is the Dean of our School of Art here at the Cooper Union. Mike?
Hello. So I went to Cooper Union. I graduated in '96. I taught my first class when I was still a student. I joined as a staff member, joined as an adjunct faculty member. I left for a little while, and then I came back as a full-time faculty member, and now I'm the dean, which is just a long way of saying I really love the place. So welcome. It is my honor to be here to welcome you to the Cooper Union. I'm going to give you a very, in a way, a very basic overview of the first year in the art school. And I'm going to do that because art school is weird, right? Many of you probably have liberal arts or professionalized degrees. I would say in art education is the way anti-professionalized. So especially at Cooper Union. So I'm just going to explain how it works. Excuse me. I'll also take my mask off. So the goal of the School of Art is to educate students in the skills, knowledge, and understanding necessary for professional practice in art and design. So it's mostly fine arts program with some design classes, but one of the things to understand is that the first year is set for every student. So the first year is a 2-dimensional design class, a 3-dimensional design class, a 4-dimensional design class, which is like space and time, a color theory class, a drawing class, and foundation techniques. And similar to what Nader said, in architecture, that's all based on making. So every week there's a prompt, every week the students do homework, and then there's a critique, and then that repeats every week in the School of Art in the first year. In foundation techniques, they learn how to use bandsaws and table saws and make almost anything out of wood. They learn how to weld. They also learn Photoshop. And that first year is structured to really set up the students so that they can participate in the sophomore, junior, and senior year. So the first year is very structured. All the students take the same classes. But the sophomore year through the senior year, that in a way only has a prerequisite structure. So the thing to understand about the School of Art is that there are no majors. So you could take photography and graphic design and sculpture all at the same time, whereas at any other art school, you might be stuck or limited, let's say, to one discipline. So the most important thing for the first year is to take all of our students from all these different high school experiences and different exposures to different art programs and really try to put everybody at the same place and have the same vocabulary and be prepared for that advanced coursework in the senior and the junior and senior year. So in the sophomore year, you can pick your classes. It's all based on the prerequisites, but you also get a studio. So every student after the foundation year in the School of Art gets a studio space. That studio space is dependent on what you do. So if you're a painter, we'll give you a ventilated space. If you're a graphic designer, you might just get a desk. But since there's no majors, we have to balance that a little bit, but that just so you understand. And then, boy, I don't have much more. The School of Art is very small. Nader mentioned that the architecture school is the smallest. We accept 60 students a year. Each of those is broken up into 15 students per section that all travel together. So you know everybody in your year. You probably know everybody in the whole school, and every student gets my cell phone number. So we all know each other, and they call me all the time. I'm also available on the website. If you need me, you can call. My door's always open. I'm here for any questions after. Welcome to Cooper Union. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Mike. And Barry Shoup, the Dean of the Albert Nurkin School of Engineering, if you would come up and talk to us about engineering, please.
Thanks, Chris. Good afternoon. I am not a graduate of Cooper Union. If you care to buy me a drink at some point in time, I will share my journey to come to Cooper. That's the way I get free drinks. But so let me add my personal welcome and congratulations to you and to your students who are here for our incoming engineering class, which this year is 146, which is one of the larger classes that we've had for quite a number of years. I can share with you, as President Sparks said, it's an amazing incoming class. Exceptional credentials, exceptional qualifications. And what I'd like to do is I'd just like to share some statistics with you, because I know each of you knows how special your own student is. They are the best in their particular school. They graduated #1. They were the president of their school. They got max SATs, other kinds of things. But let me just share you what the incoming class for us on the engineering side looks like, because it's that class composition that makes the group very special. I mean, we have very talented faculty and staff that are going to provide disciplinary expertise, but quite frankly, it is the class composition that comes together that has their own identity, their own focus. So the incoming engineering class, 21% of the incoming students identify as being the first in their family to go to college. 40% of the incoming engineering students are female. Yeah. 15% of the class are underrepresented minorities, come from 13 different countries. And let me just share a couple of other things. So they're all very good at math, science, and they will be very good at engineering. But as a class, we have many talented and accomplished musicians and artists. Mike, sorry, maybe we can share a little bit. This cohort includes singers, pianists, violinists, jazz musicians, dancers, and more. More than one of the engineering students has performed at Carnegie Hall. So not only are they very good in science, math, and engineering, they have very diverse background and experiences. So what I'd like to share with you is that the Cooper engineering curriculum is a modern math, science, and engineering curriculum that is rigorous, it's dynamic, and it's supportive. And from your perspective, it's important that we support your students so that they succeed. Additionally, students have the opportunity to participate in extracurricular activities, and in those extracurricular activities, they have the opportunity to develop skills and experience in leadership, effective communications, teamwork, critical thinking, and many more. So I've been the Dean of Engineering for 2.5 years here at Cooper Union. And what I'd like to share with you is I'd like to just share some contours of some exciting things that your students are going to be able to partake in the School of Engineering. The first is this incoming class will be the first class that has the opportunity to pursue a bioengineering minor. So not only will they have the opportunity to get a major in their discipline of choice, but they will now be able to participate in 4 different minors: math minor, computer science minor, the bioengineering minor, and a humanities and social sciences minor. In addition, last year we introduced what's called a vertically integrated project curriculum, or courses. And this vertically integrated project course curriculum basically allows students to participate in research and project-based learning and education over multiple semesters. And so we will again be offering 3 VIP courses this year. The first was Smart Cities, the second was a solar decathlon, and I'm sure everybody here has heard of motorsports. And so those are 3 VIPs. We are about to launch a 4th VIP in bioengineering. And so your students will be able to participate in that. We continue to work, Mike, Nader, and I, and Chris have lunch on a regular basis working on interdisciplinary kind of efforts across the 3 schools. And I'm happy to say we're continuing to make progress in that area. So at the intersection of art, architecture, engineering, and the humanities and social sciences, that's really where innovation occurs. And so we are working very hard to introduce even more courses. So your students will be able to take courses like generative machine learning for architecture, data science for social good, empathetic robots, art markets and non-fungible cryptographic tokens, and introduction to sustainability and alternative energy. And so we continue to work on those. We also continue to work on expanding our relationship with other organizations and entities within New York City and elsewhere. It's very important. We're a very small school, but it's very important that we use New York City as a laboratory. And so there are lots of great opportunities out there. About 3 years ago, we went into an agreement with Mount Sinai, and so we have an active relationship with Mount Sinai for research and education. This last year, we introduced a relationship with Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, and we also began a relationship with the Simons Foundation Flatiron Institute, their Center for Computational Astrophysics. And finally, what I'd like to say is the last thing that I've been particularly excited about is we have a summer study abroad program, and we have been expanding that summer study abroad program. And so this past year, we actually expanded to include Guatemala, Singapore, Italy, and Bosnia, and we add those countries to what we had previously in terms of Germany, Spain, and Iceland. And we're continuing to look at places like South Korea and Israel and Africa. And so we will continue to do those, because as we think about diversity and inclusion, a cultural immersion is a particularly important aspect for engineers and for anyone, quite frankly. So those are some of the cool things that are going on in the School of Engineering. Let me again congratulate you and welcome you to the Cooper family.
Thank you, Barry. And last and certainly not least, on our academic side, we have Nada Ayad, who is our Associate Dean of our Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences, who will talk to you about that program and all the interactions that students will have from a humanities perspectives within their coursework. Nada?
Thank you, Chris. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome. I want to acknowledge the unprecedented moment in which we find ourselves waiting in line for testing, trying to hear each other over masks. I don't want to dismiss any justified feelings, but I commit to all of us together going forward with purpose. I also want to thank my colleagues who spoke before me. It's my privilege to share this platform with them and to have the sustained chance to learn from their own disciplines, perspectives, and experiences, and to be in productive dialogue. They remind me of my commitment to being engaged in civil discourse, which is the function of the humanities and social sciences, to ask difficult questions and consider contexts and viewpoints that might not always be our own. HSS is very unique here at Cooper, since it's only in HSS classrooms where all students from all three schools mingle. Our curriculum is separated into a core curriculum that is taught in a sequence, HSS 1, 2, 3, and 4, usually completed within the first 4 semesters. The particular joy, and sometimes the challenge, is that we're not just speaking to one field, but we're trying to provide a humanistic education to students of art, architecture, and engineering. After the required core, we aim to rotate the course offerings from our electives and give students the chance to take a range of courses with different methodological and pedagogical approaches, as well as content that ranges across geographic space and time. It's a big ask. Some of the electives we're offering in the fall, next week, are anthropology of ritual, macroeconomics, the polar imagination in HSS, and in the history and theory of art, we're offering a course on performativity and ceramics within and beyond categories, to name a few. This past year, we began offering a minor for engineering students, as Barry said. After students finish the core curriculum, they can choose a minor in the following 4 fields: literature, philosophy, history, and society, history, theory, and philosophy of art, or interdisciplinary studies. I teach the first seminar in HSS 1 and also a couple literature courses. For me, literature puts the invisible and the abstract into words. It tries to make sense of the world in words. My aim in all my classes is to create exuberant interactions with the texts we study. I want students to know what it's like to fall into a text, to see a piece of writing not as a static object, but something that is very much alive and vibrant. Parallel to this is my commitment to exposing students to different rhetorical modes of expression and engagement with the help of the Writing Center, to teach students to write about literature in cogent, coherent, and clear ways. This is very much in keeping with the mission of the fields of the humanities and the social sciences in general, which teach us to interrogate our positions in society and our ideas of time and space, to question how knowledge is produced, categorized, and reproduced, and to what effect. They teach us how to try to make sense of the ambiguities, the contradictions, and the multiplicity of the historical moment in which we live, and the contexts from which we come from. For me, these discussions and frames of analysis are not confined to the classroom. As you already know, at Cooper, there are always vibrant student-led initiatives born out of student needs. During the last academic year, I have had the privilege of shaping and organizing 2 efforts with the Black Student Union and the Cooper Climate Coalition and the Office of Student Affairs and other faculty and students, the Intersectional Justice Reading and Discussion Lecture Series, and the Race and Climate Reading Group. They're ongoing, and they're sustained efforts to help students navigate a world that is very complex. Both projects are open to anyone from the Cooper community. They were conceptualized collaboratively and decentered. Both privilege a deep commitment to equity, to mutual respect, and to cultivating ways to productive engagement when conversations are difficult. It's an incredible honor for me to do this work with such inspired and inspiring students. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nada, and thank you, everybody who had an opportunity to speak already. I really appreciate everyone taking some time to talk to the folks here today about what their academic programs are going to look like. I want to echo, just about everybody here will be available if you have questions or whatnot afterwards. There's a reception at 5:30 across the street. So, if there are questions, if you have things that are lingering, by all means, just grab somebody, ask them there. I do have some more information I want to go over with you here, though. And again, just to stress, this is recorded. This will be available. So don't feel compelled to take down notes or something. I'm just going to go over a good bit of information here, just to hopefully make you feel a little bit more comfortable about what our students are going to be going through and some of the resources available to them. So I wanted to start off just by, again, introducing myself. I'm Chris Chamberlain. I'm the Dean of Students here at Cooper. And ask myself the question, who am I? And I think it's an appropriate question because I think it's the question that our students are going to be asking themselves. They are entering that age where self-exploration is pivotal to their identity. So, their self identity is going to change over the next 4 or 5 years with us. And it's important to know that. We are a very unique institution where students come in very focused and committed to study a discipline, and then within engineering, even more focused to come in with a specific major within engineering. That's fairly rare. And the amount of certitude that comes with those sorts of proclamations can sometimes cause some other anxieties as they go through their studies if they feel like some of those things start to shift. What if you're at Cooper and you're studying art and you decide you want to become an economist? And you want to pursue a different major. We have folks here, particularly in our career development and our academic programs, that will help students sort of navigate some of those complexities. And to use that as an example, there's a couple ways that could play out. We have plenty of students who would graduate from Cooper with a BFA in fine arts and then go on and continue to study economics. Some other students may decide that when they were 17, 16 years old, a BFA is exactly what they wanted to do, and then over time that changes, and we will help them and you sort of navigate what that looks like if those sorts of changes need to come. But in the here and now, we know that our students have been accepted. We know that they are brilliant. We know that we believe they're the right fit for us, and they believe that we're the right fit for them, and we're really excited to have you all here, and we're excited to go through this time together. So, to that end, who am I? So I'm the Dean of Students here. I've been at Cooper for just under 11 years. I have seen this institution change and ebb and flow. I've worked with our students across those 11 years, so I have a little bit of insight, I think, into some of the nuanced issues that come up for students over time and the ways that families, I think, can really help support students along the way. So that's what I want to focus a little bit on today, is presenting some of those pieces of information to you. Before I get into the Welcome Week highlights, to share just my own context. When I remember still very vividly, and it always comes up for me on this particular day of the year, when I first went to college. I grew up in New Jersey. I went to college in New Jersey, so I didn't venture too far away from home. But New Jersey is a long, weirdly shaped state, and I lived up in the northern part and went to school down more in the central, southern part. So it was far enough away where I was leaving home and going to be studying, living in the dorms and all of that. And I was so ready, I was all excited about it, and then as my parents were driving me to college and about to drop me off, we stopped to grab like a slice of pizza just before we were to get onto the main campus. And When I went into the pizza shop, I went into the bathroom and I just lost it. I started crying. I was, it all hit me. Like, what are you doing? You've been with your family for 17, 18 years, and now you're going to be by yourself. Like, what is all that going to be like for you? And then I stayed in the bathroom for like a good half hour because I didn't want to come out and make it seem like I had been crying and it was a whole thing. And then they worried that I was sick and all that. But long story short, it all worked out okay. I certainly had my ups and downs, and I put my family through the proverbial ringer in many ways, but came out of it a stronger person. And I think some of those experiences on a daily basis help me work with our students, with your students. So I'm excited to continue to have this class here and to have all of our students back in person to work with them. So really excited for what the future holds and where we are now. So this is a brief overview of what Welcome Week, some of the highlights about what's going to be going on over the next 5 to 7 days. A big portion of what we're going to be providing them with is opportunities for them really to get to know each other, to build friendships, and to build connections. Dean Shoup-Barry mentioned some of the extracurricular activities that students had, and I can assure you that a lot of those talents that he mentioned that may seem, in some people's minds, fairly atypical for engineers to be coming here after they've been performing at Carnegie Hall is fairly commonplace across all three of our disciplines. Our students are incredibly talented, clearly in the three disciplines, but also just very talented young folks. And that is reflected in a lot of the offerings that happen here at Cooper. So on the extracurricular side, there'll be lots of student clubs and student organizations that are going to be hosting meetings and meet and greets and sort of getting them involved in sort of the fabric, the cultural, social fabric of what it means to be at Cooper. And I'll preface that with saying, that is still very much evolving. We had a year and a half off, so to speak. We had a lot of and as you can imagine, a lot of what we do at Cooper, both academically and extracurricular and co-curricular, is very hands-on. It's very in spaces, doing things, seeing things, very tactile, very experiential. So, as we're coming back together, a lot of these groups are sort of reconstituting themselves and sort of redeploying and rediscovering what it means to be back in space and occupying space and being together. So it's an exciting time for folks to be joining our community as that happens. And a lot of that will be happening over the course of this week, particularly this weekend. If you go online, the Welcome Week schedule, it's still evolving, but there's lots of different clubs and organization events that are being added constantly. Really heavy focus on Saturday and Sunday for folks to really have an opportunity to engage in those spaces. And then once the school year starts, we do a student activities fair and other opportunities for people to really get to know other students, but also sort of be engaged in what it is that interests them. Some of these things here I'm presenting are just things that for you to maybe reinforce to folks as you're talking with them. One I would say is, definitely encourage folks to attend everything. All of these experiences are here for them. I'll get into this a little bit later. Part of being in college is sort of that transition and transitioning from being a high school student and where there's a lot more structure, a lot more people sort of looking over you, to young adulthood and moving on to your professional career. So they'll have a lot of decisions to make. If they decide that they don't want to go to anything, with a couple of exceptions, that's their prerogative, but they will really miss out. There's a lot of, rich experiences they can have, and we will be doing everything we can to encourage them to attend. So, anything on your end to help with that is also appreciated and will definitely benefit them in the long run. So today is obviously our welcome. We're doing part of that now. Hopefully we did some of that earlier. And again, for those of you who may have come a little bit later, my sincere thank you for your patience in some of the protocols we put into place around testing. And I know there were long lines and a lot of heat, but really appreciate folks' patience and understanding in helping us navigate through that. And after today, things should be people won't be tested every day. So it's not, know that our students are not gonna have to go through those long lines every day they're here. And moving forward for classes while we are doing testing, and I'll get into this at the end, we'll have testing 5 days a week, so there'll be lots of opportunity for things to be happening. So after today, and again, we'll have a reception after this where we can mix and mingle and get to know folks a little bit better. Tomorrow, one of the big events is we have a campus open house. That'll be taking place both here and across the street, and it's really an opportunity for students to kind of get their feet wet in what these spaces look like, what our labs look like, what our studios look like, what our shops look like. There'll be techs and folks around for them to kind of meet. I know for me, I still have this recurring nightmare where I'm in high school and I don't know, like I'm supposed to go to my calculus class or whatever, and I have no idea where it is and I'm lost. and at 40, however old I am, I still have that dream. So part of this is a way to help that, alleviate some of that real in-person anxiety. They will have as much time as they need to sort of go through the spaces, get a sense of what's here, what classrooms look like, where they are, kind of get the lay of the land, so to speak. So that will all be available to them tomorrow. One thing that may be of interest to you in particular is families, and for you to maybe reinforce to them, we have some folks that'll be in tomorrow between 1 o'clock and then again at 2 o'clock. It's the same presentation at both times. And it's just it's a safety presentation, and it's really, how to sort of the tips of navigating New York City, safety, security, personal safety. So just an important thing. There'll be some handouts that we give out, and we'll be sending out to those folks whether or not they attend the workshop, but they have plenty of time tomorrow where everyone would be able to attend one of those 2 workshops. So we will be reinforcing that, but I know personal safety is always something that people, especially if you're not from New York City, is usually front of mind and top of mind. So know that we are offering that. And we do have a security team, and we have a director of security here at Cooper who also serves as a resource for students and helps through a lot of those things. On Thursday, a primary focus of that day will be students will be engaging within their actual academic programs. They'll be meeting advisors, they'll be engaging with the academic leadership who spoke to you earlier today, and really sort of learning more of the nuts and bolts of what their academic experience will be like. If they're course selection, meeting with advisors, all of that will happen during that time. And by course selection, I generally mean really sort of mapping out what their 4 or 5 years at Cooper will look like. As folks mentioned, usually the first year curriculum is fairly prescribed for folks, so there's not a whole lot of changing that happens during year 1, but going over what all those electives look like and what it will basically take to get them from here to year 4 or 5 to graduation. And if you're wondering why I'm saying 4 or 5, in case you aren't in the School of Architecture, our School of Art and Engineering, our 4-year degrees, our School of Architecture is a 5-year degree, so that's why it sounds a little wonky sometimes. On Friday, we have a mixture of things. The Intersectional Justice Reading Group that Dean Ayad mentioned earlier will be happening on that day. We have a session on career and professional readiness, which is also usually something that's really front of mind for students. It always amazes me how our student body, oftentimes before they're even at this point, where they've even engaged in Cooper and started taking classes, are already, this is the job I want, this is what I want to do, how do I get there? So no, we have a team that will be meeting with them and going over the resources of how to sort of set that game plan for them. And then just general well-being, we have a team of student care coordinators, 2 full-time clinical social workers who work in the student affairs team to really sort of help students navigate whatever complexities may come up. We don't have our own on-campus, health center here at Cooper, but we do have a wealth of resources available really close by. We do have a counseling program where we do provide counseling to students, and Cassandra and Elizabeth, who are our student care coordinators, meet with students one-on-one to sort of help them navigate those complexities, whether that be around physical health care, mental health care, whatever it is they may need to get connected to those resources so that they have those supports that they need. They'll meet those folks and have those connections around that. And I'll talk a little bit more about some of those resources in a few minutes. On Saturday, we have our Welcome Back picnic, which is a first for us, actually. We're launching a new thing this year to bring everyone back to the campus and community, so it is truly a welcome back for the entire campus community. So really excited to be bringing back our faculty and staff and students from across all 5 years to be together as we sort of wrap up the weekend and kick off the classes starting again on Monday. Sunday, nothing really formal on Sunday. It's a lot of sort of, I think, kind of getting through those own anxieties of what the next day is going to bring for you. There'll be a lot of social programming infused throughout this, but particularly on Sunday, a lot of opportunities folks to kind of, take some tours, do shopping if they need to buy books, if they need to buy some tools and supplies. And then on Monday, we hit the ground running with classes taking off. Again, encourage you, the Welcome Week schedule is available on our website. If you go to just cooper.edu on the main carousel, there's a link there. Feel free to take a look at that if you're curious exactly what's going on and want to share information with the students that are here. Wanted to touch briefly on one of the questions I get most often is, what's different from high school and college? And while it may seem fairly obvious to folks, sometimes it's still worth saying. One of the biggest changes, quite frankly, is, for many students, for all students, this is a new environment. All of our incoming students, whether they're first years or our returning sophomores, they're coming into a new campus. Many of them have never been on campus before, so they have a new environment. They have a new city, a new state, and perhaps a new country, depending upon where folks are coming from. So there's a lot of change, a lot of differences that are going on. So really, it takes time to adjust to that. I think we've all experienced change in our life. Different academic work. Work in college is very different than work in high school. And I will leave the pedagogical aspects of our educational programs to the academic folks, but one thing that is very common with our students is there's this process, especially over the first year, of sort of learning and unlearning. There's many students come in with this sort of preconceived notion of, if it's art, this is how I engage in this practice. If it's architecture, this is how I've always done this. And even if it's engineering, this is how I've learned calculus and applied it before. And we may do things a little bit differently here. We may teach a different way. We may teach to a different end. It may be more applied. It may not just be calculus for the sake of learning calculus, but actually how you're going to apply it to real-world problems. So there's a learning curve to that. There's a sense of agency in your own education and really learning taking in the information that you're learning and drawing correlations to that to what you want to do for your life. So it's a different stakes. It's a different sort of situation. I mentioned student agency, and now I'll mention self-advocacy. A big part of college is sort of making that transition to being an adult. We all, I'm not sure if there's any students in the room or not, but I think it's probably fair to say that 17 and 18, we know from biology that brains are still developing. Yes, you may be an adult legally. You may have the legal rights that come along with being an adult and all of that and the complexities that we work with. But folks are still developing and figuring out who they are. And part of their 4 or 5 years with us is sort of navigating that pathway. It's really figuring out who they are and learning how to stand up for themselves. In high school, they probably had a guidance counselor or even other folks that maybe held their hands a little bit more than may happen in college. And our first year is really sort of that transition in gateway. We put resources in place, and there'll be advising teams and people that'll work with students to sort of help make those transition happen. But one of the key pieces of information to keep in mind is, generally speaking, students need to sort of take some action and some initiative on their own behalf. And that's really one of the biggest changes in college. And sometimes that can be one of the harder things for families, is sort of taking that little step back and trusting the process and letting it go and knowing that they're in good hands and that they're going to make decisions, and they may make mistakes, but that they'll learn from that, and people will be there to support them. We'll be there to support them, and you'll be there to support them. Again, we are here to support and encourage, but the student is ultimately in control. Asking for help, and I'll mention this in another slide, but so important. As folks are going through, you may get a phone call that they're not prepared for an exam or something, there's some sort of stress or anxiety around that. One thing that I think is just so important to reinforce is reminding them to tell somebody. It's important for them to deal with that themselves, but it's also important for them, let your professor know if you're struggling. Let your advisor know if you're struggling. Reach out for help. People here want to help, and one of the biggest obstacles that come up oftentimes, I think, is people get in their own way. Students feel embarrassed about coming forward. And learning that skill set of that asking for help is not it's not a sign of weakness. It's actually a sign of strength, and it's actually very hard to do. And we work with them on that, but it's, again, my point of mentioning it here is I think it's important as you're working with folks that are your sons and daughters and others that they understand that and to help reinforce that too. And then finally, again, just the process of learning all of these things is really what the next 4 or 5 years will look like for them. Just a couple synopses here about how they can get support. Again, asking questions. If they don't understand something, ask. There's lots of people here that will be able to answer those questions for them. Similarly, reaching out, kind of along the same lines of asking questions. One I want to stress is just responding. I can't tell you over my 11 years here how many times we reach out to folks and they just ghost us. And they may ghost you too. I mean, maybe you've already experienced that, and you may continue to experience some of that. But just reinforcing, hey, if you get a message from somebody who's checking in, answer it and just let them know, either you're okay or you want to talk to somebody. Like, we are the kind of place, as other folks have mentioned, where we're small enough where if there's a concern, if you've been attending class and you stop attending class, if you were doing really well and you're not doing really well, we're going to check in on those things. We're going to see how you're doing. I mean, we want you to succeed. We want you to thrive. And, if things are misaligned and need to be adjusted, we want to help with that. And Part of that help is the reaching back to us from on the student side. So just tossing that out there. And again, talking to someone, obviously fairly self-explanatory there. I apologize if this is really small to see, but again, this will be available for folks. But just wanted to sort of go over some of the support that is available. And again, some of this may seem really commonsensical, but I do feel like it's worth mentioning. Faculty, first and foremost, so many relationships are built here with our professional degree programs. Folks here that are going to be resources for them, both during their time at Cooper and beyond as they move out into the professional world. So, building those relationships with faculty, but also communicating with them about their struggles and their concerns. Every student will have an academic advisor, and that looks different depending upon what school they're in, meaning which academic program they're in, but there will be somebody that they will be working with about their academic, so their course sequencing, but also academic concerns. Our Center for Writing is an amazing resource. It's part of our Humanities and Social Sciences area. Any students that have difficulties around writing, but even just any sort of writing adjacent concerns, we have an amazing team there led by Kit Nichols, who's the director of that center, who brings a lot of resources to students, and they offer weekly regular sessions if students sign up for them. So again, the students do need to reach out and sign up for them, but they are available to sit down with somebody on a weekly basis and go over, their papers they're working on, their research projects, whatever it is. They have those assets available to them, and they'll be getting emails about all of this. So checking their email is a key thing, which I'll touch on in a second. Our library and Cooper Union Archives team do amazing work. They've actually done some work with the incoming class already around research and sort of what library resources are available. What does a library look like in 2021 versus what a library may have looked like when I went to college, or maybe when some of you went to school? It's very different. Those resources are different. So sort of reinforcing what that looks like, as well as our relationships with other New York City schools, NYU, and others where students do have access to their library resources. Our Office of Student Affairs, I mentioned the student care coordinators. Our Center for Career Development will be the folks that will be doing a presentation later this week about professional development, career readiness, and job opportunities as they sort of transition either in the summer months or after graduation. I am the Dean of Students. We have an Associate Dean of Students who work with students across a whole host of concerns. Disability Support Services falls under the Office of Student Affairs. Any student who's registered with our office will be outreached if they have not already. Actually, they already would have been outreached. I had many meetings today with most of them and some of you to sort of talk through what disability accommodation plans look like, so those will continue. I would be a point person if you have questions about that. Our residence life and housing team, for those students that are living in our residence hall, we have a full team of professionals that live in, and student staff members that are there to sort of guide students and shepherd them along the way in that process. So don't hesitate to reach out to those folks as well. They are amazing resources, including our resident assistant staff, which are Cooper undergraduate students that live in the building to help students sort of acclimate to those processes. We also have peer mentors and college orientation guides, which are also undergraduate students that are working with the incoming class to welcome them, to sort of build those connections and help them sort of navigate what this week will look like for them and beyond. I mentioned our counseling program, which you can read about more online. One thing I did want to mention to you, which we will go over with students again, though, is we have a program here called Cooper Care. It is available to all students at Cooper. It is totally separate and apart from health insurance. And it basically provides 24/7 free access to mental health care, physical health care, and scheduled counseling. It's an app. So again, one of the sessions we'll do this week, we'll literally have the entire class in here, and we will have them go through and download that and set up an account on it so that they have access to it. But it does offer, again, 24/7 access to either a physician or a nurse practitioner if there's a health issue that they want to navigate. And again, free of charge. There's no insurance. There's no cost associated with that. It's included as part of their tuition and fees at Cooper. And similarly, there's a function called Talk Now. If they're, like at 3 o'clock in the morning, they're having this like anxiety attack and they're worried about an exam the next day, they can log on and talk to somebody in the here and now at any time. And then there's also a scheduled counseling component to that too, where they can work with a therapist on a regular basis for regular sessions going through. And again, that's all part of the package. It's included. They don't have to use their insurance. There's nothing with that. So to the extent that you can reinforce that with them, it's just another resource that's available to them that sometimes gets overlooked. So I promise I'm sort of wrapping up here. how you can help. Keeping the lines of communication open, I think, is key. And I know at least one person I'm sure just thought, yeah, sure, easier said than done, because I try to talk to my blank all the time and I just get a blank stare, or they don't want to talk to me, they don't get it, and that's going to be hard. That's part of just adapting to being a teenager transitioning into young adult. But I do find that just students who know that even if they don't engage with you, know that you are open to them engaging with them, that when they need to talk, they know that they can do that. So, whatever that looks like for you in your relationship with them, just making sure that they understand those lines of communication are important. Encouraging help-seeking behavior. If they need something, ask about it. If they feel like they need some support, ask for it. Remind them to check and read their email. They will get a lot of information, especially, and I'll talk about this in the next slide, just with COVID and sort of how we're evolving around that. So, right now we have a certain set of protocols in place that certainly may evolve over time. I'm sure it will. So just making sure that they're aware of what those options are, and not options rather, but what those sort of protocols are that they need to follow, and everything from class registration, all of that, all of our email communications are our official communications from Cooper, so that is where they'll get some key information. Reading their course syllabi kind of sounds pretty simple, but when the school year starts, making sure that you've checked in with them, like, hey, what are your classes this semester? What are your requirements for those classes? Just so that they sort of, for some students, I've found that it's really helpful for them to sort of map out, here are my 6 classes, here are all of the assignments that are due over the course of a semester, to really figure out, what they need to do, and sort of have that at a glance, and you might be a resource to help them sort of figure that out. Seek to understand them, and then underneath that I put the first B. And again, this comes from being here for 11 years. We have a lot of students, as Dean Shute mentioned, using engineering as an example, who maybe have a perfect score on their SATs, didn't maybe study super hard in high school, and this could be in any discipline, not just engineering. And they come to Cooper, and it's a very different experience. They're for all the reasons I mentioned earlier. It's a new environment, they're learning things differently, and maybe they've only gotten A's their entire life, and they get a B on their first physics exam, and they go in a tailspin. They don't know, they can't believe they got a B, they've never gotten a B before, and I'm mentioning this here because for the next thing here, I think students are often afraid of disappointing you. So many conversations I have with students are, I can't tell my parents I got a B on my physics exam. And I appreciate the chuckles, but I do promise it is very real. And I think this goes back to those lines of communication, letting them know that it's okay. There's gonna be ups and downs, and they may start off with a B or a C, and part of their initial sort of foray into their education is sort of learning how to creep up that step. If they get a B on their first exam, they can learn what did they need to fine-tune their study skills, and their advisors, their faculty can sort of sit down with them and help them. There are office hours, lots of resources to sort of figure out what tweaks might be needed for them to sort of get to where they want to be, and learn from that. And the support from you is just so important. And again, I put in here, remember the who am I. Again, who they are is developing. It is changing over time, and their sense of but their sense of self and who they are, their identity is going to continue to evolve. I mean, God, when I was in college at one point, I had blue hair, I had green hair, I had all sorts of things going on, and I would still do that today if I could. But the years have not been kind to my follicles. But I say that again just to remember, they are going to be going through these transitions as well. And finally, be gentle with yourselves. This is, as families of students that are here, this isn't easy. It's hard to leave somebody here at college in New York City and hope that they're going to make good decisions, and we can all help and guide them. But just know there's an immense amount of support both here at Cooper and at home, and whenever we need to sort of triangulate around that, we are here to help with that. But being gentle with yourselves is important. I am often reminded of that for myself too. It's hard work. I don't have kids as other folks here do, but many times I feel like I have 1,000 of them with our population here at Cooper Union. So I promise you, they are in good hands, and we are here to help in any way that we can. We may have some difficult conversations at times, but we're all working towards the same goal. As we wrap up here, I did just want to sort of circle back on some of the things that have already been mentioned, because I know this is certainly on folks' minds, it's certainly on our minds, just around COVID. And again, my sincerest thank yous for all of you. I know some of you stood in line for hours today, and really do appreciate your patience and remaining calm and understanding and all of that around that. We are all in this together. What we know is what we know. We know right now that we're dealing with the Delta variant, and as President Sparks mentioned, we've made a lot of both structural changes here at Cooper insofar as air filtration, cleaning, all of those sorts of protocols, and our other protocols continue to evolve. If you would have asked us 3 months ago, I think we all would have thought that this event would have been taking place without masks on. Maybe even 2 months ago or a month ago, we may have thought that. And but we will adjust things as we need to make sure that the campus is safe, that we are safe, that our students are safe, and we will communicate those changes out. And we have a health and safety team. As President Sparks mentioned, it's led by Natalie Brooks, who she's not here right now, I don't think, but I truly do not understand how she has the bandwidth to do everything that she does, and she keeps that group very well together and is constantly on top of all of the changes that we need to implement here. And whether it's the CDC guidelines, New York City, the state, all of that, very well connected and constantly evaluating and evolving what we need to do around that. Similarly, for folks that have students living in the residence halls, we will be adjusting protocols and policies over there too. We do have some restrictions on non-Cooper Union guests for the month of September, just for safety reasons. We have a limited span of control to know who's vaccinated outside of the institution, and testing and all of that. We only really know what we know about our own folks, so that's why some of those decisions are made. But as time goes on, we will continue to adjust and develop those things. And really, again, what we're doing is we're just constantly evaluating. So do check. Again, we will communicate to families and parents as well as really significant changes in that come in whatever direction they be. But we are really cautiously optimistic with us requiring vaccination on campus for our entire community, both our students, our faculty, and staff. And we'll be doing weekly testing just at least at this point, we're planning on that through September. If we need to do that longer, we'll do it as long as we need to make sure that folks are safe and that we have the right things in place to make sure that works. But do know that we are very much on top of that. It is front and center, and something that we as a leadership team communicate about regularly and sort of adjust our decisions about what that will look like. In closing, I did want to just stress again that many of us, myself for sure, and many others will be available at the reception across the street for sort of any individualized questions you may have, or even any broad questions that you may have, or please just come over and say hi. I would love to meet folks that I haven't had a chance to meet yet. Really appreciate you taking the time to be here. And for those of you who are sort of in the virtual space watching this remotely, would also echo, feel free to send an email. The entire student affairs team, you can find us all or anyone at Cooper, quite frankly, in our directory, but would love to make a connection and just get to know folks. So please don't hesitate to reach out if there's things that we can do to help support you. This is a slide I will be sharing with students later today. I'll be doing a similar presentation with the incoming class and some sophomores that are able to join this evening, and I'll go through a lot of the same resource information with them. But this is something that somebody sent me recently that they used at a different college. But just this idea of resetting, readjusting, restarting, and refocusing as many times as you need to. And we'll be reinforcing that with students as they're navigating their education here, as they're learning different things about themselves and about their discipline and everything. Just you can always restart. There's always every moment is another moment to make a different decision and to do things in a different way. And our teams are all here collectively to sort of help them navigate along that path. Last but certainly not least, unless for those of you that are taking Dean Shoup up on his offer to buy him a drink later for his stories that he'll share with you, we are having a welcome reception for folks across the street, 41 Cooper Square, up on the 8th floor. It's an alumni terrace. It's an outdoor space. It's a beautiful space with beautiful views. Would love to see you there. Would love to have you there. There'll be some food and some drinks, and again, outdoors, so it's a little more breathable. I know it's a little warm, but we would hope to see you all there, and would love to have an opportunity to say hello to each and every one of you there. Thank you for taking time to be here with us now, and look forward to seeing you all in a little bit. Pleasure. Thank you.